Hello and welcome to our channel, Cheating Exposed. Today, we're revealing another story. I became obsessed with my husband's best friend after I found his condom. So, let's get started. I'm a 29-year-old woman, married to my childhood friend, who is now 30. We've known each other since we were 10 but didn't start dating until my second year of college. After he finished college, he bought a house, and I moved in with him. We married when I was 24, and now we have 2 boys, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. We've been living in the same house since college, but now we've bought a better one and are getting ready to move in. My husband is the only man I've ever been with romantically, and our intimate life has always been steady. We used to be intimate at least twice a week, which was quite frequent considering our long relationship. My husband had a college friend named Patrick. They were close during college and even roommates at some point. However, after graduating and starting families, they grew apart, though my husband still invited him to family events. Patrick was of a different race and always friendly whenever we were around him. I never thought about him romantically until one day, when our family was moving to a new home. My husband and I were organizing our garage, filled with items untouched since our college days. As I went through my husband's things, I found a hidden stash of 3 condoms tucked away between some old books. The discovery led me to suspect infidelity during college. They seemed too large for my husband, raising further doubts. We had used protection early in our relationship but stopped after I started birth control. When I confronted my husband with the condoms, he chuckled, explaining they were too big for him and belonged to Patrick. He said he had taken them as a joke to tease Patrick but forgot about them. His explanation made sense, but the discovery stirred something within me. I started finding excuses to be near Patrick. I invited him to join me for shopping, something I usually did alone, preferring thrift or discount stores. My primary reason that day was to spend time with Patrick. His presence made me feel like a giggly schoolgirl, and I couldn't control how I felt around him. Though I had no intention of being unfaithful, I found myself wanting to do anything he asked. I sought physical contact, touching his back or arms and holding it longer than necessary, especially when the kids were distracted. Patrick seemed to understand the direction things were heading, but he didn't make any advances or reject my contact, which encouraged me to push things further. Once we finished our shopping, Patrick helped me with the items I had bought. While our kids were at the back of our cars, I started feeling a bit disappointed because he wasn't making a move on me as I had expected. However, he surprised me by suggesting that he could come over and help me with the items I had purchased. It was clear I didn't really need any help, but I was thrilled when he made the offer. I tried not to accept too quickly but eventually said yes, aware that my husband was due to come home in about 5 hours. When we got to my house, our kids were tired, so we set them up in the game room with some video games before we started moving and organizing the things we had bought. After our kids were settled, Patrick and I began unpacking the boxes of items I had purchased. I led the way to the bedroom, explaining to him that these were old clothes I wanted to try on to see if they still fit. In response, he told me that I would definitely still fit into those clothes and that I looked as stunning as I did when we first met years ago. His words ignited an overwhelming desire within me, and in that moment, I couldn't resist and kissed him. I had never been with anyone other than my husband, so the experience of Patrick's hands on my body as we kissed was incredibly intense and soulful. I had never felt as aroused and excited as I did when he began undressing me. We engaged in a passionate encounter driven by primal desire. It was an incredibly soulful experience, different from the love, reassurance, and intimacy I had known. I simply wanted to have a passionate physical connection, and it felt absolutely incredible. After he left with his kids that day, I felt something had been unleashed inside me. When my husband came home, I felt guilty, so I tried to be more affectionate with him than usual. Deep down, I knew I couldn't stop what had started with Patrick. I've been intimate with my husband many times since then and genuinely enjoy it, but I still have cravings for Patrick. We text each other and meet up at least once a week. To me, he was like a cheat meal during a diet. I needed to be with him every week to experience him, to feel desired as a woman. Our affair continued for 5 months. During that time, we attended a mutual friend's birthday party where Patrick brought his wife. I noticed he was starting to distance himself from me. When I sent him text messages, it took longer for him to respond. When I finally asked him about it, he mentioned that his wife was becoming suspicious and that he felt guilty. These explanations made me rethink our relationship, as I thought he might not be enjoying it anymore. I probably should have just left things as they were, but I couldn't resist the need for closure, so I convinced him to meet me at a diner. So, we met up to end our affair. After the mutual friend's birthday party, Patrick's wife had confronted him with suspicions, though she didn't have any concrete evidence. I couldn't help but wonder if something I had done at the party had tipped her off. Despite the risks, I convinced Patrick that we should have one final encounter before cutting ties for good. Reluctantly, he agreed, and we arranged to meet at a hotel. Knowing it would be our last time together, the experience was intense, but there was also an underlying sadness, as we didn't want to jeopardize our marriages any further. Just about 5 hours after we left the hotel, I received a text from Patrick that read, "She knows." A wave of panic rushed over me. When I called him, he explained that his wife now had concrete proof, evidence of us meeting at the diner and leaving the hotel. My heart sank as I realized how precarious my own marriage had become. Patrick was in the midst of his own turmoil and wasn't sure if his wife planned to tell my husband. Desperate, I urged him to find out, but our conversation grew heated, and he hung up on me. Later, I apologized to Patrick for raising my voice. When I got home, I found my husband sitting in tears, holding all the evidence. He already knew everything. I confessed, begged for forgiveness, and pleaded for a chance to make things right. But he was devastated, and it was clear I had broken his trust beyond repair. The next 2 days were the hardest of my life. I sought out a marriage counselor and started individual therapy to understand why I had done what I did. My husband and I agreed to cut Patrick out of our lives completely. My husband even confronted Patrick, who took full responsibility and offered his apologies. Despite these efforts, my husband decided that a trial separation was necessary, and we agreed to 3 months apart. Meanwhile, Patrick's wife left him. During the separation, I found myself reaching out to Patrick in moments of weakness. It wasn't about reigniting the affair but seeking closure and understanding. However, Patrick's wife, who had been monitoring his phone, discovered our messages and informed my husband. That was the breaking point. My husband, feeling betrayed again, decided to move forward with the divorce. Surprisingly, Patrick's wife returned to him but began sending me threatening messages. At that point, I felt like I had lost everything: my husband, the love of my life, and even the connection I thought I had with Patrick. I tried explaining to my husband that I had only reached out to Patrick because I felt lost and uncertain about how to move forward. But my husband remained firm in his decision. I suggested resuming the trial separation he had initially agreed to, but he was resolute. To make matters worse, he shared details of my infidelity with my family, something I had hoped would remain private. Now, as I reflect on everything, I am consumed by regret. I know I was wrong to initiate the affair and to let it continue for so long. I yearn for the simplicity and harmony we once had, but I know those times are gone. All I can do now is accept the consequences of my actions and hope to rebuild my life, one step at a time. Well, folks, that's all. Thank you all for listening. Please like, comment, and share the video if you enjoyed it. Also, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you will be notified when we upload the next video. Take care.